Today we are testing out some of the super flagships from Sony, the Xperia 1 Mark V versus the Xperia Pro I. Can the 1-inch size sensor still surpass the dual stack layer sensor that we have on the Xperia 1 V? We will figure this out in this comparison. You can see the specs. We have basically a triple 12 megapixel sensor setup on the Pro I, and we have two 12 megapixels on the 1 Mark V, as well as the brand new 52 megapixel sensor where you can use 48 megapixels for shooting photos. And of course we have also the front-facing video. Let's start maybe with the front-facing videos, but we have a clear winner there, of course, already with the 1 Mark V because it can record 4K. So now I'm recording with the Xperia 1 Mark V. And yeah, I have my dog with me that you will see there, maybe on the ground somewhere. Where is he? There he is. Front-facing video, 4K 60 frames per second, which is new, but you can see HDR is still an issue here on this one. What do you think about the front-facing video? I think it has a bit more detail now, even with the 60 frames per second option, which is quite nice in comparison to the predecessor. But yeah, how does this compare to the only full HD that we have on the Pro I? Let's figure this out now. So this is now recording with the Xperia Pro I and 1080p 30 frames per second. You cannot even record 1080p 60 frames per second, which is quite interesting. The stabilization should be a little bit better here because we only have 30 frames per second. And I think at 60 frames per second, 4K on the 1 Mark V is a bit weaker than the 30 frames per second 4K recording. But what do you think about this one? Also HDR, I think same issues. So my face is a bit underexposed right now and the sky overexposed, which is quite a bummer there that Sony is not figuring this out yet. I really hope them to figure it out with the next generation, that we have like more high dynamic range also in SDR mode, still maintaining good stabilization as well. This is something that I really hope for, either a software update, which would be very, very cool, or with the next big Sony smartphone. So these are the front-facing videos, and now we switch back to the back-facing videos that I recorded a day earlier, even without the external mic that I usually use, just because it was a better day. And also, let's check out the photos afterwards. So now recording with the Xperia Pro I, the main sensor, the 1-inch type sensor that we have here, even though it's not using the 1-inch type. What do you think about the bokeh, about the colors and the microphone? Because I'm using the internal mics here. It has a big mono mic on the back that is also somehow voice optimized. They don't advertise it as voice optimized, but it is basically. So it's a mono mic here on the back. Does it sound better than the Xperia 1 Mark V's? Just we will take a look at this in a second. And yeah, of course, stabilization is well here, and this one is the same as on the Xperia 1 Mark V. And sadly, I don't have the seamless zoom here, so I have to stop recording to show you the ultra wide angle. But I will show you the Xperia 1 Mark V first, and then we will switch back to the ultra wide angle of the Xperia Pro I. And now the same test with the Xperia 1 Mark V, using the rear microphone as well, voice optimized, and the 1/1.3, almost 1/1.4 inch sized sensor that has better dynamic range, does it? We will see. How does the bokeh look like, and yeah, what do you think about the colors? Cool thing about this one here, it's an Xperia 1 device, so you have the possibility to zoom out. So I can zoom out now to the ultra wide angle, as you can see here, and move a bit around, and we will go up the stairs, and I will do the same thing with the Xperia Pro I. And yeah, tell me what you think about this one. So climbing up the stairs, what do you think about this one? And ultra wide angle, HDR, how good is it? And yeah, now I will go down the stairs with the Xperia Pro I. So now the recording with the ultra wide angle 60mm one on the Xperia Pro I, and my dog, I have a dog on the leash, as you can maybe see there, and he has to climb down the stairs. You can do it, but it's like a bit of like distracted by other people walking in the background. And yeah, we want to go down here to see how good the stabilization is of the 60mm one on the Xperia Pro I, and still using the rear microphone because I forgot my wireless mic system that I usually use for this one. So what do you think about this one? Let's put the sun in the background. How good is HDR here? Let's walk here a little bit to compare with the Xperia 1 Mark V, but I think it should be the same sensor. Maybe the processing is a bit different here on the Xperia Pro I. What do you think about this? So now the Xperia Pro I's zoom lens, 50mm only, as you can see here. I'm switched, by the way, to the left and right stereo mics. Not sure how good these are with the wind noises. I can zoom in digitally to roughly 150mm, which looks like this. And yeah, this is 4K 30 recording. What do you think about the zoom here on the Xperia Pro? So now I'm recording this Xperia 1 Mark V, 24mm actually, but I have the seamless zoom option, so I can zoom to 85mm, which looks like this, and then I can even zoom to 125mm. And I think the Xperia Pro I stopped at 150mm. So let's go. This is roughly, it's a bit hard to do. Let's go back. There we go, 160mm somehow, 162. And let's zoom into maximum, which is now 375. What do you think about this one? Also using the stereo mics here. How good is the wind reduction? And I can zoom out to the 24mm ones. As you can see here, very nice seamless zoom on the Xperia 1 Mark V. What do you think?
The photos on the left are Xperia 1 Mark V, on the right are Xperia Pro I. We start off with the close-up shots. We can get a bit closer with the Xperia 1 Mark V for sure. The Xperia Pro I has a bit of darker exposure, as you can see here, and more bluish kind of tint. When we take a look at the sharpness level, you can see, although I got a bit closer with the Xperia 1 Mark V, we have a bit of more shallow depth of field, where the foreground is a bit of out of focus, where the Xperia Pro I keeps it nice in focus, and the rest of the little fruits here as well, where here the Xperia 1 Mark V has only those here in focus, and the upper one not in focus. Which one would I prefer? I like the more darker kind of shadows on the Xperia Pro I, where the lifted shadows on the Xperia 1 Mark 5 look a little bit artificial, but the colors on the 1 Mark 5 are much more realistic, because it's turquoise-like, more towards bluish, more towards the green, is more realistic than the kind of completely bluish that we see on the Xperia Pro I. When we take a look at one of the major reasons why you should get an Xperia device is fast-moving subjects or objects, just like my dog Timmy here, that is always on the run, and you can see it was running towards me, and I get a nice sharp shot on the Xperia 1 Mark 5. But also the Xperia Pro I is also no slouch either here, keeps him nice and sharp, and even if he's not moving, the eye and face autofocus are working nice. Even for animals, they're detecting his eye, and I get always nice and sharp shots here of him. As you can see, a bit of shallow depth of field on the Xperia 1 Mark V again. I think it has something to do with the not whole sensor size on the Xperia Pro I in use, so it's not using the 1-inch size sensor completely, but only 1 or 1.3, which is roughly the same that we have on the Xperia 1 Mark V in terms of sensor that is used there. But we have a larger aperture on the 1 Mark 5, which gives us a bit of shallow depth of field, more shallow depth of field. But overall, you can see this could be a portrait as well, and you can see like the shallow depth of field there may be tiny bit better on the 1 Mark 5. And yeah, very nice shots here. Also, you can catch those moments, those little details there when he's also smiling with its eyes that he's closing, and it just looks nice. It's very, very nice, and both, I like both. They're both very good when it comes to these kinds of shots. And everything nice in focus, nice and sharp. All the little details you can see here is very, very cool. So no winner for this. Both very good when it comes to those action shots. Very fast there as well. But we have to get the crown to winner in terms of HDR, and here I think it's clearly the Xperia 1 Mark V, thanks to its newer sensor. You can see here with the overexposed area that it's slightly less overexposed on the 1 Mark V in comparison to the Pro I. We have a bit of darker shadows here, a bit of more dynamic range basically on the 1 Mark V, and overall also a bit more detail that you can see here. Look at the bench, you can see that there are lines on the bench, a bit more moire going on, also going on the Xperia Pro I, but you don't see the lines here on the Xperia Pro I. So there is like this pixel binning is working, nicely here. Also the background here slightly overexposed again, here nicely exposed. So I think the 1 Mark 5 has the better sensor overall, though the Xperia Pro I is keeping up very good with its 1-inch size sensor. And the difference between the sensors is also very clear here in this shutter speed priority photo that I took with 1/80th of a second shutter speed. They had to lower the ISO to not get an overexposure. What the Xperia 1 Mark 5 could do is ISO 50. I think it can go down to either 32 or something like this, which is very fantastic for a smartphone. The Xperia Pro I can only go to ISO 100, so we have a slightly overexposure here. You can see it here in the background already, where the Xperia 1 Mark 5 is doing a nice job in this shutter priority mode. Also, again, the little details here. Look at the net of the ping pong table. Also a bit more details there in comparison to here. Otherwise, yeah, a little bit of overexposure here on the Xperia Pro I, simply because I think the ISO was raised too much. But this is what you can get in manual mode as well. I think also, again, a bit more natural colors on the Xperia 1 Mark 5 in comparison to the Pro I. When we talk about the low light photography, however, when it's not completely dark, not too dark, you get a bit of like artificial light going on. The Xperia Pro I and its DSLM-like camera sensor is working a bit better than the Xperia 1 Mark 5 that has a bit of editing going on. And yeah, we have nice details here. Everything looks cool, even though we have a little bit of like sharpening going on. The Xperia Pro I doesn't have the sharpening because it has natural sharpening and looks much more natural here, especially also this one here. This looks a little bit edited here, and they try to sharpen up the text, where here nothing edited, it's just simply out of camera. But you can see the difference here. So we have a little bit slightly overexposure again. It's a bit brighter picture on the Xperia Pro I for sure. But again, a little bit more overexposure. Look at the background here, slightly less readable. Here, the text sharpening algorithms makes it even readable. The smaller text is readable there as well. So yeah, there are slightly difference here. I prefer the Xperia Pro I's more natural kind of look here. But when you come to ultra low light, where I couldn't see my hand or the toolbox at all, the Xperia 1 Mark 5 is winning thanks to its better sensor here. Which is quite interesting. Yeah, of course, it's nothing to write home about, but you can at least see something from the toolbox there. I have a hammer, I have a screwdriver, I have a wrench here, I have a string here. I can see the string here as well on the Xperia Pro I, but the night and day difference is clear. Yes, the Xperia 1 Mark 5 is not doing daylight out of nighttime still, though you can get a bit of more or better exposure than on the Xperia Pro I for sure. Now let's talk about the ultra wide angle, because here I got a surprise. The Xperia Pro I has the better ultra wide angle. It has a bit of a bluish tint, a bit of more punchy colors, but you can see here in this example, yeah, 30 seconds apart, this picture taken, a bit of bad coating or bad handling of this sun shining directly into the lens. The Xperia Pro I was handling this way better. Maybe the lens alignment or where the lens was like praised has something to do with it as well. But you can see here the colors a bit over punchy on the Xperia Pro I here. I prefer the 1 Mark 5 a little bit there, but also there's the blue. You can see the blue hue here, that is not, this building is not so blue. Also, exposure is a bit better on high dynamic range, a bit better on the Xperia Pro I overall. And when we take a look at other photos here, you can see also the difference in terms of colors again. The Xperia 1 Mark 5, especially the sky color, more realistic because it wasn't that blue as the Xperia Pro I makes it look like. But here, it's a bit too greenish down here below. Yeah, it was a bit dark, but everything gets a bit greenish here, which is not realistic. The Xperia Pro I is a bit better because not only because it's a bit brighter, but also it's like not so greenish there. So maybe a mixture of both would work here very nicely. Otherwise, both very fine. When we take a look at this shot, we can see actually that the Xperia 1 Mark 5 has a bit better dynamic range. You can see it here in the background. We have a bit more blue and more information here about the sky. Or also here in the middle. And when we take a look at the middle, we can also compare the sharpness, both very sharp, both very good in this case. But I think the Xperia Pro has better glass still, because when you take a look at the side sharpness, you can see this is blurry already, where here we have like the bushes here behind the fence still sharp. It might be the algorithm that's a bit better there. Also the bench here is a bit sharper, you can see more details there, but I think it has something to do with the lens being a bit superior on the Xperia Pro I. Could be just like a fluke of the 1 Mark 5 that I have here. Here you also can see the more punchy colors on the Xperia Pro I for sure as well, where the Xperia 1 Mark 5 has more realistic colors there. So very, very close together here. the ultra wide angle. Let's talk about the zoom lens. Zoom lens, no competition, 50 millimeters, 2x zoom, Xperia Pro I, punchy colors, blue exposure, darker exposure, more yellow, more warm kind of color, 3.5x zoom, superior against the Xperia Pro I's 2x zoom. And when I go to 5.2 times, which is still optical on the 1 Mark 5, and compare it with the maximum digital zoom that we have Xperia Pro I, very comparable. But when I zoom in, you can see the big difference here. Of course, the optical zoom wins. No competition, and I can even go to 15 times zoom, which is still, it's not the best, doesn't look so good, and it's very comparable to the maximum zoom of the Xperia Pro I. So I don't think AI zoom algorithms have made any progress there between them. But yeah, the optical zoom is better on the Xperia 1 Mark 5 for sure if you want to zoom in. So overall, what do you think? Write it down in the comments section. Which one do you prefer in terms of main camera, ultra wide angle, and tele zoom? And of course, in terms of colors, do you prefer more cooler kind of colors of the Xperia Pro I, or the more warmer kind of colors of the Xperia 1 Mark 5 with a bit of raised shadows and more high dynamic range?
So Xperia versus Xperia, which one is the winner? It is clear that the main sensor on the Xperia 1 Mark 5 has more dynamic range, even though the Xperia Pro I has a larger sensor. So it is a tiny little bit better on the Xperia 1 Mark 5. What is definitely better is the telezoom lens with its longer reach. Even though it's not fantastic, I think it's just simply with its longer reach beating the Xperia Pro I's telezoom lens. Within the qualities, I would say I think it's on par, even though there's a bit of more optimization going on the Xperia 1 Mark 5. When it comes to the ultra wide angle, very, very close. The Xperia 1 Mark 5 has better dynamic range, but the Xperia Pro I has better optics. So you can see it's very close, but we have a winner here, and this is the Xperia 1 Mark 5, especially when it comes to video recording. It's brand new features like the S-Cinetone, but also the focus speaking option that you have with manual focus, and those little tiny things and details with video, like 4K 60 stabilized now on the front and back camera. And definitely talking about front cameras, the front camera is a massive improvement on the 1 Mark 5. So overall, the 1 Mark 5 is the better device when you compare it to the Xperia Pro I. What do you think? Write it down in the comment section. That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and until the next time. Bye.